that we got really fat by adding all kinds of expensive softwares and hiring all kinds of staff, and then going and hiring these agencies, and then starting to just get expensive spaces and do all kinds of things that weren't necessarily essential. They're just kind of nice to have, wants to have. And because we had this huge influx of cash, and we got kind of complacent with all the cushy money that was coming in, and it was easy to make sales then. But now consumer spending has changed a little bit, hasn't it? I recently did a podcast episode that had received an incredible response on what to do in a summer sales slump. If you haven't listened to that episode, I'm gonna recommend go back, listen to that, or watch it. It was a great episode where I got really tactical, primarily from the marketing standpoint. Like, how do we become really strategic marketing-wise in these slow seasons of business? But since we released that episode maybe a month or so ago, I've had a lot of conversations, a lot of DMs, whether it's coaching calls, whether it's just one-on-ones, whether it's a group setting. I've had so many conversations around the idea of what in the world is happening in the e-commerce space right now. What is consumer spending starting to look like? Maybe you've kind of felt this in the last, I'd probably say the last 6 months, maybe the last 3, a little bit more. In the last 3 months, there's been a little bit of a shift that you may have felt in your business, where it's like sales are slowing. It's getting a little bit harder to acquire some customers. And now, not every industry that we work with experiences this. Yes, there are some that are just on fire right now and only going up. But for the most part, I'd say really often I hear what's going on. Like, are we in this financial crisis right now? Are we there yet? Are we heading there? The recession has been declared, at least in the United States. What's happening? Interest rates are really high. There's all this macroeconomic stuff that's going on. And the question is like, what does this look like, and what does this really mean for the e-commerce world in particular? And so what I kind of want to talk about in this episode is my response and my diagnosis of the situation, what I believe has led to where we are at this moment in time. And then I want to share some things that I believe you need to fix if they're not fixed right now. These are those 6 things that I'm going to talk about. If they're problems for you, if you're weak in those, what's going to happen over the next, what I believe the next year and a half, between 2023 and 2024, they're going to be amplified times 10. They're going to be just really amplified if you don't have them under wraps and if you don't work on them. And so let's go. I want to talk through some things here. When it comes to sales, when it comes to just this, whether it's a summer slump, whether it's a seasonal slump for you, or it's just a simple lower economy slump. Like, we've had this slump in general in buying behavior. And I want to just point a couple things out here. In 2021 to 2022, I kind of look at this as like those 2 years in particular in the online space. We've been doing this for 10 years now. And what I've seen is those 2 years, 2021, 2020, and 2020, were kind of like the baby boomer years. The baby boomers between 1946 and the early 1960s, all of these troops come back from World War II in the United States, at least, and they start settling. And then what do they all want to do? They all want to settle into suburban life and start getting married, and they will all want to settle down and have kids, right? So the baby boomer years in that 1950s, early 1960s range spawned a lot of human beings. Well, in 2020 and in 2021, that was like the e-commerce boomer years, where we have everyone trapped at home, people out of work, nothing to do, and every watch time on Netflix and YouTube and time spent on social media just blew through the roof, right? Makes sense. There's nothing else to do, and it just blows through the roof. And so what happens is everyone's trying to figure out, how do I make money from home? How do I start to increase my income? And some of you maybe listening or watching this right now experience that. Maybe your business started in 2020 or 2021. Many of our clients that we work with and in our community started in that range. And then on top of that, we start these businesses, and on top of that, the government is handing out money like it's candy, and twice in 2020. And then we had PPP loans. payroll protection loans. And then we had an additional round of stimulus money. I forget the CARES Act. I forget the exact name of it. Comes out in 2021. So you have in this 2-year period of time, everyone's stuck at home, nothing to do, wanting to start these businesses. So you see this rise in competition, and then you in stores being opened online, and then you see this injection of almost $1 trillion. At least in the United States. I like to say that because I know we have plenty of people outside the US to listen and watch this. You have this injection of $1 trillion, at least in the United States, into the economy that, by the way, we're all going to pay for at some point, and we're starting to when we see that with inflation in other ways. But all of that gets blown into the economy, and then what does everyone do? Well, they go and spend it like regular Americans. So we spend all this money. So you're able, if you start in 2020 or 2021, you're new in, well, you're able to just simply cruise and ride this wave of $1 trillion that is injected into the economy, and everybody's just buying everything. And then everyone's at home, so they're online, so they begin buying. And so what happened is, I look at this as those 2 years were very defining years for not only new businesses, but existing. You got to ride this wave. And I talk to clients all the time about this. Like, 2020 was my best year ever. We had $50,000, $100,000 month. But now we're down to $10,000 months or $20,000 months. Like our revenue is cut by half or cut by a third. And in all of that, it's largely because we got to ride this wave. And now we're to this moment in time where there's going to be a separation. At least I believe there's going to be a separation. I'm starting to see it now. We have the honor of working with close to 200 e-commerce brands right now. And I get to see firsthand a lot of the challenges, a lot of the things that arise, the cycles of advertising and how things are starting to play a role. But in the last 3 years, here's what I've seen. Well, 2 to 3 years. I've seen a lot of businesses get really fat. Gotten really fat, meaning you have these good years of just cash being injected, and you could just run Facebook ads in 2020 and get like a 3, 4, 5 ROAS and not even have to really worry about it because everyone's spending money and it's just easy to make sales. But then that ended. And then on top of that, at the end of 2021, we have iOS 14.5 hit. And then now it gets harder, right? Because now attribution and tracking and privacy is making it much more difficult. And we in the process of leading up to that, we got really fat by adding all kinds of expensive softwares and hiring all kinds of staff, and then going and hiring these agencies and then starting to just get expensive spaces and do all kinds of things that weren't necessarily essential. They're just kind of nice to have, wants to have. And because we had this huge influx of cash, and we got kind of complacent with all the cushy money that was coming in, and it was easy to make sales then. But now consumer spending has changed a little bit, hasn't it? It started to change. And then suddenly people weren't working still for some reason I don't understand. Now it sounds like it's getting back on track a little bit, but that has changed. And then a recession's announced, and so people are kind of like a little bit skeptical there. And then 14.5 iOS comes out in June 2021, so that kind of punches a lot of us advertisers across the face. But now is this moment in time where the real entrepreneurs and the brands that I believe are going to last are going to become separated from the ones that don't. And in 2023 and 2024, I believe these are going to be the defining moments where the wheat is separated from the chaff, particularly in the e-commerce space, because there was such a boom that happened, but now it comes down to where are the real entrepreneurs? Where are the ones that are going to fight through this and who don't give up? Because if you look at the history of entrepreneurs and businesses that have thrived in economically difficult periods of time, their skills that they built along the way, their arsenal of skills that they had are what really carried them forward. And so for me, and this is us, like no industry is immune to it. The only thing that changes is how we respond to it. So at this moment in time, the playing field is being leveled. I think iOS 14.5, when it came out, it leveled the playing field for advertisers. It's not like some got tracking attribution and didn't have to worry about it and others didn't. Everybody got hit with it. So you had to adapt or die, right? You had to adapt and you had to make changes. You had to figure out how to track attribution, use manual attribution, use attribution tools like Triple Whale and Hyros and Northbeam and et cetera and things like that. Or you had to come up with other ways of really measuring results with your advertising efforts. That was 14.5. That's on the advertising front. We're now to this point where we have to say, okay, what's going to have to change in my business for me to win over the next year or two? When interest rates are high, when getting money in cash and getting investment in capital is going to be really, really hard to get. Banks are tightening up. They're not as easily handing out loans. They're also charging exorbitant interest rates on those if you do get those, which are on the lines of predatory, in my opinion. So what needs to happen? And so I want to share some things. That is what I've seen. I have seen that happen right before me, and I've seen the trend because every single day we talk to so many business owners, particularly in the e-commerce space, that some are winning, some aren't winning as much. They're running into challenges and all of these issues. But the thing is, the playing field is being leveled. Spending is going down. We are seeing that. I'm really actually curious to see what the predictions for Q4. The skills that they have used to protect themselves. The entrepreneurs, the teams, and the skill sets of those people and how they were able to leverage those in order to win. You know, what happens when campaign in the strategy that you've been running for the last 6 months or the last 3 months or the last year that has been doing great, suddenly your CPAs go up by 70%. Because people aren't buying from that ad as much, or that message isn't necessarily resonating as much. What do? Well, if you keep doing the same things, you're going to keep getting the same results. But if you have advanced skills, then you'll know how to adapt. You'll know how to shift accordingly. Because if you have these stagnant skills and you're not getting better at certain things like new customer acquisition, for example, then what's going to happen is your weaknesses are about to be magnified times 10 in the next year. You can quote me on that. Maybe I should tweet that on Twitter so that way I have reference to that. It's going to amplify. It's only going to get harder. So when the economy is contracting, it doesn't just contract for your business, it contracts for all of your competitors too. The question is, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to shift in your business to persevere and to win through that? And this is that moment where you will be forced to become better. You'll be forced to become better, or you're not going to make it. Or it's going to be really difficult if you do make it. And it's going to be very stressful on you and your mental health, your family, and your entire team. And so there are a few problems that I believe e-commerce owners, they have that will only be, if you have one of these problems, it's only going to be amplified over the next year or so. But if you can reverse engineer and solve the 6 problems that I'm going to talk about here, I think you're going to prime yourself to actually thrive in this season. In this, and I say season because seasons aren't permanent. Seasons come and go. Financial difficulties, they come and go. Economy ups and downs, they come and go. And so you can make it through this. You can get your sales back up. You can take advantage of the situation and turn your ship around if you solve some or all of these 6 problems. It will help you in that journey. So I just felt I really needed to record this podcast because I've had so many conversations with business owners right now that feel defeated, that are on the verge of throwing in the towel. We have coaching calls 3 to 4 times a week inside the Mac to Profits mentorship, where we work with the e-commerce brands on leveraging Facebook ads for new customer acquisition and email and things like that, and really growing. And I have the honor of doing that, but in doing so, I also get to hear some of the horror stories. I get to hear some of the mental fatigue that's happening. I get to just hear the hearts of people that are really feeling it and feeling the pain and on the verge of throwing in the towel. And so I want to share 6 things that if you can work on these, if you could solve these problems, these will change your trajectory over the next 6 to 12 and maybe even, hopefully not, 18 months. So the first problem that I believe you have to solve in this moment in time is not knowing how to acquire new customers with some paid medium. It doesn't matter if it's Facebook ads, Google ads, or you're just running ads in your newspaper. Probably not doing that. A little extreme. You have to know how to acquire paid customers with paid advertising in some capacity. It is the only predictable way of growing. Organic is valuable and it's going to get you so far. But if you need to produce sales on demand, it gets kind of difficult. And so as the playing field is leveled, what's going to happen? What's going to happen is people are going to retract. They're going to contract. They're going to contract their budgets on advertising. And when budgets in advertising are contracted, well, what happens to advertising costs? Advertising costs go down. And so I'm going to actually encourage you to go on the opposite end of that and say, okay, well, everyone else is contracting. How do I expand? How do I change my mindset to say, I'm going to expand when others contract? When everyone's pulling back on budgets, I'm going to push forward. I teach all of our clients this. In January of every year, push on your budgets. Cost of advertising is cut in half. In financial difficulties, same thing happens. People pull back. And if you can push forward and you can figure out the right messaging, you'll be able to acquire customers for cheaper. But you have to go through the process of figuring out how to do that. So if you do not know how to acquire customers predictably with a paid source, you have to figure that out. That is problem number one. Problem number two is you need to stop being a product pusher and you need to start being a problem solver. So when there's a massive, when you are, and I want you to think of this too, like let's pretend that mom and dad, let's pretend we're kids, right? And mom and dad just give you an allowance. They just give you $20 every single week. Well, when you have $20 just handed to you and you have a big savings that you've been stacking from money that mom and dad have given you, you're able to if you want something, you'll go buy it, right? It's a want. It's kind of like, this is nice to have. That's really cool. I'd really like to have this game. I'd really like to have this toy or whatever that is. You just go buy because it's just kind of given to you and you have that. But when you don't have, right, if mom and dad stop giving to you and your savings starts to dwindle down, right? I'm going to pull back on the wants. I'm going to lean more into the needs. And so when there is injection of cash in the economy and everybody is fine, you can push your product. You can just say, hey, here's our product. Here's what it is. It's super cool. Come buy it. And people will do that. But when it isn't there, when people are contracting, they're going to focus more on their needs. And so you have to start positioning your products as problem solving. And sometimes the problem your products solve is not like a physical ailment or a health related problem that it solves or something that helps improve their car function or something like that. It could be an emotional problem. You can help solve the problem of an emotional stress that they're feeling. And maybe your product helps bring joy or happiness or entertainment or something like that. That is a way to position messaging to then position itself as a problem solver, because studies have been done time and time again. People buy on emotion and they justify with logic. When we're pushing our products, like in our ads, for example, or we're pushing them in emails or whatever, or social, whatever that is, and we're saying, hey, here is my candle, and here is the flavor of my candle, and it burns for this many hours, and you start listing off all the features or the benefits of your products, that's leaning more into the want. And so if somebody you're pushing your product, and while you could push it in a great economy, people are just spending like money's going out of style, it's a little different, right? When people are contracting. And so when they're contracting, we need to position it as the perfect candle to create calm in your home, right? And I'm just off the cuff coming up with something random here. That ties into the emotional component of it. And it solves the problem of maybe I don't feel at peace right now. Maybe things are a little chaotic in my life, and this candle is going to create some soothing environment. It's still the same product, but I am problem solving. I'm not product pushing. So that's the second thing I believe that you're going to really have to lean into solving over the next year. The third thing is not focusing on retention. If you have this problem now, figure this out. If you have issue with getting repeat customers coming back to you, you need to lean in and ask yourself, why aren't they coming back? Is my product experience bad? When they get the product, what's the packaging like? I just received something that we bought recently, actually today, came in the mail. We ordered it from, I always love supporting small Shopify stores. So we ordered from a Shopify store, not Amazon. And it came in, it's really cool. Cardboard box. There was a little thing in there. There was no packaging. There was no slips. There was no card in there. There was no anything of how anything worked. It was literally just a product rattling around in the box. Are people not coming back because of that? I'm not going back because of that. Like, that was a bad experience. I'll go somewhere else. I'll go to Amazon before I do that again. And so ask yourself, what's stopping people from coming back? And the second thing is, am I actually am I getting them to come back through email? If you're not leveraging email right now, you have to start leaning into, how do I create my flows? How do I create campaign cadence? How do I start running promo cycles? How do I create cash injection with email? So you have to create retention. That's number 3. The fourth problem that I believe, if you have this, it's only going to be amplified by 10 over the next year or so. And that is not investing in your brand. I love paid ads, and I will preach them till the day that I die, because I believe that it is so critical that you invest in paid advertising. You need a paid source. However, brand is something that you need to be able to fall back on, because if people buy based on emotion and they justify their purchases based on logic, how much different will it be when you're sending emails and they love you? They love your tone of voice. They love your brand. They love the style. They love the products you have. Well, they have this emotional connection. They're much more likely to buy. So when I say investing in brand, I am meaning investing in largely social media, investing largely in saying, let's get some degree of posts going out there. I believe you need to master paid advertising, but I also understand what's coming, and I understand what's happening and starting to happen right now. And building a brand helps counter that and hedge against it in those more conservative times. The fifth thing is that this will become a problem, and it'll only amplify, is not having a circle of confidants, not surrounding yourself with people that are doing what you do, that speak your language, that are maybe where you want to go or where you are at, and they could speak that life into you, that can encourage you, that could share what they're doing with you. Community is so crucial in those moments. Like that, I mean, if you think about it, that's why we have therapists, people that we can go talk to in those times of need. So we're not just living inside our head, because entrepreneurship, especially when you're in the online space, can be so lonely if you're by yourself, if you're at your home and you're just living in your head and you're having a really bad week, or you're having a bad month and things are down and you don't have anybody to confide in, anybody to talk to, anybody to brainstorm with. And so community and not having a circle of confidants and community is only going to amplify and get worse if the situation gets worse and you're still by yourself. And the sixth thing that is a never-ending thing that you always need to be working on if you truly want to win in the game of business, in my opinion, is lacking mental fortitude. If you don't have mental fortitude, if you're not working on your mind, and working on how you respond to the situations, then it's going to eat you alive. And you have to put boundaries. You know, if you run Facebook ads right now, do you ask yourself this? Do you have Facebook Ads Manager on your phone? If you do, first thing I tell, I have a couple rules I tell all of our clients who we start working with. One of the first rules is you have to delete Facebook Ads Manager on your phone, because if you don't, what's going to happen? You're going to start swiping it. You're going to start refreshing it 16 times a day. And if something's not going how you want it to go, and you check it at 9:49 p.m. at night, right before you go to bed, then suddenly your brain starts going into this overload, stressed out mode, and then you can't sleep, and then it affects your sleep, and then you could downward spiral. And so protecting your mind and having the mental fortitude to push through when things aren't working, starting to shift your perspective to, okay, just like Thomas Edison, I just learned one less way to make the light bulb. If something doesn't work, ask yourself, what didn't work that I can learn from? How can I glean something from this that I can take forward and push and become better in this season of business and in this season of the economy? So it's tough. Maybe you're listening and you're like, hey, it hasn't been tough for me, Josh. And if so, I'm so happy for you. Great job. If you're listening or you're watching this right now and you're like, I'm in a tough season right now, feels like things are pulling back, challenge yourself. Get more advanced skills. Put yourself in a circle with people that believe in you. Figure out paid ads. Figure out how to increase retention. Stop being a product pusher. Start being a problem solver. Surround yourself with those people. Invest in your brand, even if it's 1 post or 2 posts per week, and begin preparing yourself mentally for the situation that you're in. And if you can surround yourself by other people, as a side note, that is going to help you in all of that. You've been listening to the E-Commerce Alley podcast, produced by Dylan counts. We appreciate you. We believe in you. If you want to be part of a community, I encourage you, go to alleypodcast.com/group. It will redirect you to the Facebook group that we have. Absolutely free. There's a little over 4,000 e-commerce business owners in it right now, just like you, that are fighting forward for their businesses, and you can find community there. So at least you can cross one of these off the list, and we will also help you acquire more of those advanced skills every single week as we live stream in the studio. And if you want to learn the paid acquisition side and say, hey, Josh, how do I improve retention and how do I acquire customers with paid ads like Facebook, then I encourage you to go reach out to our team or reach out to one of us once you get into that group, and we'll show you what our programs look like and how we can help train you and teach you on how to master that skill. So that skill set can help protect you over the next 6, 12, 18 months. We'll see you in the next episode.